Hey there, friends and enemies, Jopie here again, and since we've already seen the reveal of all the rare cards coming to Magic the Gathering in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle set in March, I figured now would be a good time to go over my personal favorites, which ones I'm most likely to add to my collection. And this doesn't necessarily mean these are going to be the strongest cards, they're just the ones that fit in my personal decks, but also I think provide some interesting value in a variety of ways. One quick note, do not be buying these cards at their current price. If you see them for like $13-14, that is definitely going to go down once the set fully releases. People just jumped the gun with a lot of these because they were available in the Lorwyn Eclipsed pre-release boxes. So because of that, do not be fooled by some of these early prices on these cards. I think they are pretty good, but not worth what you would be paying now when you can play much less later next month. Anyway, as far as my first card, this is going to be an honorable mention. This is Cool But Rude. Whenever you attack, you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. This is an enchantment, by the way, which costs a colorless and a red. For colorless and a red, you can make it level 2. Whenever you discard a card, this class deals 2 damage to each opponent. I like cards that do each opponent damage instead of just a single opponent because I do play a lot of Commander. And then for a colorless and a red, you can make it level 3. When this class becomes level 3, search your library for a card, put it into your hand, shuffle, then discard a card at random. Not necessarily a massive fan of that being a one-time use level 3, but I do think it makes sense overall. Otherwise, it would be quite powerful. So I do understand that. I just think that's why this is going to be an honorable mention and not one of my 5 favorites. As far as my first of my top 5 is Krang Mastermind. I think this fits in very well in pretty much any artifact deck that has blue in it. For 6 colorless and 2 blue, which is very expensive, you get a 1/4 creature. However, it does have affinity for artifacts, and in those decks, like an Urza deck or something like that, you will be able to get this out very cheap. Not only that, but when Kang enters, if you have fewer than 4 cards in hand, draw cards equal to the difference. That means you're going to likely save this for an opportunity to draw some pretty solid cards overall. And so because of that, that adds a bit of value. And then finally, it's got Kang gets +1/+0 for each artifact you control. So, if you have the full 6 artifacts that make this a 2 blue color creature, it'll now be a 7/4, and that is very valuable. You will cast this likely later in the game to get the card draw benefit, plus you'll be able to get a much more powerful creature for relatively no cost at all. 2 blue will be nothing at that stage of the game. And so I think there's a lot of ways to make this use. If you're in a blue deck that is able to multiply artifacts and create a lot of token artifacts as well, this thing is going to get very cheap very fast. So I do think this is one to keep an eye out, and will be just like a simple addition to all of those decks. You could potentially make this a commander as well for a mono blue deck, but I just don't think it'll be as valuable if you do it that way. The nice thing will be the fact that you can essentially select any time to pull this out, draw some cards. If it dies, you draw it back out and draw some more cards if you've dropped low again. So it adds a bit more value there, but I think it's better in multicolor or in a deck that already has a different commander personally, but we'll have to see. Up next is an enchantment class. This is probably my favorite enchantment in the entire set, called Ninja Team. For 2 colorless and a black, whenever a creature you control leaves the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life. This is very nice. I can see it fitting very well already in my Sephiroth deck. To make it level 2, because for a colorless and a black, creatures you control have +1/+0 and have menace. Also kind of nice, especially when you look at level 3, which is for a single black mana. Creature cards in your graveyard have sneak, 3 colorless and a black. You may cast creature spells from your graveyard using their sneak abilities. Sneak essentially is if you attack with a creature and it goes through and is unblocked, you can return that card, that attacking creature, to your hand and spend the mana to use the sneak ability and bring that card out. Now, normally you would have to do that from your hand. However, being able to do it from your graveyard, especially again in a Sephiroth deck where you are sacrificing a lot of creatures, does feel very handy. And then having Menace is going to make it easier for your creatures to attack and get through to your opponents. So it just combines really well there. And I think this is one of those cards that I personally will be looking to collect. This is probably in my top 2 as far as what cards I think I'd most likely run. The others are more universally good, but not as geared towards decks I currently have. So that's why, Ninja Teen is definitely a must add for me. Then we have Slash Reptile Rampager. For 3 colorless and 2 red, you get a 7/5 Mutant Berserker Turtle with Alliance. So whenever another creature you control enters, Slash will do damage to each opponent. Obviously, if you're casting a lot of creatures, that's going to be a main purpose of whatever deck you put this in. That's going to be really, really handy. And then whenever Slash attacks, create a 2/2 red mutant creature token. So that token will enter. So essentially, you will want to not only be casting creatures, but attacking with Slash as often as possible. And yeah, I just think this is a combination that could work really well and get out of hand quickly if people are not taking this off the board right away. One of those, again, I don't think it necessarily fits being a commander, but I do think it could have a lot of potential in a bunch of different decks, and so that's why I think this could be really, really good. And at 5 mana, it's not so expensive that it will not find a place in other formats as well, and I think that's also pretty important because it does have a lot of versatility. So up next, we are going to go with a Transdimensional Bovine. For 2 colorless and a green, this Ox Avatar has flying, and you tap it to add 2 mana of any color. It also is a 0/4, so it's not as easily removed as some other mana dorks that you might have in some of your decks. It is a little bit more expensive at the 3 mana, but 2 mana of any color, especially if even if it's any one color in a commander deck, could be very advantageous. Any multicolored deck, to be honest, could benefit from this because essentially if you are running low, if you're having mana problems with a certain color, this will alleviate that very, very quickly. And overall, it is a 0/4 with flying, so you could potentially use it as a blocker at times as well, which I think would come in handy. So yeah, overall, I think this is one of those cards that I think is a pretty solid option. Maybe it's not going to be the best card, but I can see a lot of different decks that I toss this in, and it provides quite a bit of value. And then finally, we have Weathermaker. This will kind of go inside with Krang as well. This is a 3 colorless artifact with Landfall. So whenever a land you control enters, put a charge counter on this artifact. It has 3 different abilities that you can tap it for. For 1, you can add a 1 mana of any color. Obviously, that is very expensive for a 3 mana cost artifact, so that's not going to be as primary use, but it is a nice benefit whenever you don't plan on using one of its other abilities. Then for the second one, it's tap it to remove 2 charge counters from this artifact, add 2 colorless mana. Again, a nice option to have for 3 mana, maybe not the best, but you should be ramping up your charge counter as well. If you're playing a Landfall deck, this feels like it could be a must-add for that. And then finally, to tap it and remove 3 charge counters from this artifact, it deals 3 damage to any target. Again, just a nice variety of options that you have with this card. If it was 2 mana, I think it would be broken. But as it is now, I think it's a pretty solid, versatile option. And again, I will probably toss this in a Landfall deck because don't forget, if you are casting or if you are bringing out multiple lands per turn, you are going to be generating multiple charge counters per turn and have a lot of different options depending on what you're trying to do. I could see you getting a bunch of, if you also have a deck that proliferates or anything like that, or you're able to add additional counters to things, this is going to really ramp up quickly and allow you to deal 3 damage to any target essentially whenever you want, or just add additional mana at any given time. So I do think this is pretty versatile. It's pretty nice, and it's again one of those cards that I can see being viable in a variety of different ways. And so for that reason, I think it is a definite chaser from this set. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Are there any of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle cards that you are most excited about? Will you be picking up cards from this set when it does launch? Let me know in the comments down below. Like the video as always, comment, subscribe. Have a good one, and I'll catch you all later.